This story does not aim to debase any religious group or government and is merely a creative piece based on historical facts, the sources of which are mentioned in the description below. Verily, the uncivilized people are those who strike at whoever did not strike them. A man who kills those who did not fight him. The Muslims had freed the holy city of Jerusalem from the Crusaders under the leadership of Salahuddin Ayyubi, who was known for his kindness towards the enemy civilians. He would honor their lives and safeguard their properties in times of war, an act of mercy that was seldom shown to the Muslims by their enemies. Chapter 1. The Holocaust. Women and children screamed as some German soldiers smashed the windows of the houses. "Go on, don't stop! These Jews are like lice, they cause diseases." "Yeah, gotta get rid of all of them for good." The German soldiers motivated each other to keep on attacking more and more homes, shops and synagogues belonging to innocent Jews. They were on a mission to kill all the Jews in their land. This mission was given to them by Adolf Hitler, the ruler of Germany in the 1930s. Hitler hated the Jews and blamed them for the defeat of the Germans in World War I. "Cut off the beards of these men. Don't leave the women off with their hair." A terrified child hid behind a vehicle as he watched the soldiers cut his father's beard and shave his mother's head. The cold-hearted soldiers mocked and laughed while carrying out this wicked mission. The German soldiers captured all the Jews they could get hold of, men, women, and children, and forced them to march with their hands tied up to a place miles away. "You, old man, walk faster or we'll leave you behind." "That's right, we'll leave you behind, dead." These were called the Death Marches, as anyone who could not keep up was killed along the way. The soldiers took them to a faraway place where they'd set up tents for them. The Jews were forced to live in these tents and camps without any food or water. These camps came to be known as the death camps. Many Jewish children and old people fell terribly sick as there was no water to wash and clean. Millions of them died or were killed in these camps. These terrible and unforgivable actions committed against the Jews by the German army came to be known as the Holocaust, which means the complete destruction. Even though this was the biggest destruction of the Jews in history, this wasn't the first time they were being treated badly. The Christians of the olden days blamed the Jews for the murder of Jesus, who they believed to be the God. The Europeans looked down upon them as they did not like to share their land and businesses with them. And so, the Jews suffered severe humiliation and oppression in the European lands. This injustice made it very crucial for the Jews to have a homeland of their own. Little did the world know at that time that to get a homeland of their own, they would carry out the same wicked mission on other innocent people as was carried out on them. Chapter 2. The Zionists. "We have not come to an empty land to live in, but we have come to conquer this land from the people already living in it, with their own language and an awful culture. We cannot share this land with anyone else if we want to make it ours, and ours only." A Jewish leader addressed his fellows as they sat around a table discussing their future homeland. This group of Jewish men were the members of the Zionist organization. The Zionists were a group of Jews who wanted to take over the land of Palestine for themselves. Their goal was to turn Palestine into a new country called Israel. For thousands of years, the Jews had wandered here and there without a homeland of their own. The Europeans and the Westerners did not like them and did not give them equal rights in their lands. The land of Palestine was holy for the Jews in their religion, so they decided to fight for it and conquer it. "We must expel these Arabs from Palestine and take their place. After all, they are just a bunch of nomads." "But Where will we expel them? Force them out in the deserts? Millions of them? We just need to purify the Holy Land of these Arabs, but it will take time, decades maybe. Slowly but surely we will get rid of them. There wasn't anything wrong with the Jews having their own homeland where they could freely follow their religion. But the intentions of the Zionists amongst them was to snatch away the land of Palestinian Arabs through force and cruelty. Many Jews following their correct religious teachings rejected the idea of Zionists. But the European and the Western people were more than pleased. What could be a better and easier way for them to get rid of the Jews from their own lands? Just give them their own piece of land someplace far away. The Arabs were, anyway, a threat to the Western and European powers with their unwavering faith in one God, Allah. Better to replace them with the Jews. Chapter 3. The Balfour Declaration. Great Britain is prepared to support the independence of the Arabs in the areas suggested by the Sharif of Mecca. A messenger read out a letter received from a British ambassador to Hussein ibn Ali, the Emir of Mecca at the time of World War I. Hussein ibn Ali was an Arab and from the descendants of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and was in charge of the two holy sites of the Muslims, Mecca and Medina. He feared that the Ottoman Empire of the Turks would take direct control over Mecca and Medina. Therefore, he wrote to the British leaders, offering his support against the Ottoman Turks in World War I. In return, the British leaders who were emerging as the winners of the war promised Hussein ibn Ali the independence of Arab lands, including Palestine. Our country is Arab, Palestine is Arab, and Palestine must remain Arab. Palestine's awake now. We will not let anyone take over our land wrongfully. Free, free Palestine. We will fight for our land. Angry Palestinian Arabs gathered in the streets shouting and protesting. The British leaders had broken their promises of independence from the Arabs. Rather, they'd secretly promised the land of Palestine to the Jews. A letter was sent to the Zionist leader by one of the British leaders, Arthur Balfour. The letter said that the British would support the creation of a national home for Jews in Palestine. This was in return for the services of the Jews to support Britain in war. This letter was known as the Balfour Declaration. Oh God, my farm's been taken away. How will I feed my children now? An old Palestinian farmer mourned as the British guards denied him entry into the farm which belonged to his family for years. But this is our house. Where will I go with my small children? A Palestinian mother cried in shock as she held her small baby in her arms, trying to push past the guards who blocked the door of her house. 100,000 Jews entered Palestine after the Balfour Declaration. Weeks turned into years as the Palestinians slowly lost their freedom in their own land. The Zionists started preparing their own army with the help of the British government. They were preparing to carry out another destruction of innocent people. But this one was not called the Holocaust. It came to be known as the Nakba, which means catastrophe. Chapter 4. Nakba, the Catastrophe. A group of Zionist leaders sat together on a round table, all of them peering down at piles of files and papers. They talked in hushed tones, as this was a top-secret meeting. How many orchards are there in this village? 5 huge orchards, and there are fruits on every tree. That means richer people, more men and more weapons to defend. They might even fight back. They were discussing and plotting a plan to destroy the Palestinian villages and farms. At around the same time, in the other parts of the world, the innocent Jewish brothers faced the horrors of the Holocaust. Instead of holding a meeting to plan to stand against their true enemies, the cowardly Zionists tried to save themselves by plotting to destroy the innocent people of Palestine. Don't forget our most helpful ally, the British men. It's time to get rid of them from this land too. Pfft, the British are our puppets. We'll get rid of them in no time. The Zionists plotted and planned against the Palestinians as well as the British government. As World War II came to an end, the British government in Palestine faced rebellions from the Arabs and attacks from the Zionist armed forces. The Zionists bombed the headquarters of the British government, causing confusion and fear. They entered the Palestinian villages in the dark of the night and planted bombs to destroy the homes of the Arabs. The Zionist army had used British support to gather weapons and train to become very powerful. The Palestinian Arabs were no match to them, with just a few rifles and guards to protect their villages and families. Unable to control the monsters they'd created in the form of the Zionists, the British government turned towards the United Nations for help. May 1948. We hereby declare the establishment of a Jewish state in Eretz Israel. The words of the Zionist leader Ben-Gurion echoed in the hall as he declared the creation of the new Jewish state of Israel in the land of Palestine. The United Nations had decided to divide old Palestine into two countries, Israel for the Jews and Palestine for the Arabs. More than half of Palestine was now the Jewish state of Israel. And now was the time for the Zionists to put into action their careful planning of murdering as many Palestinians as possible. Come on now, move it!
No, let him go. He's a child. He hasn't done anything. Mama, Baba, help!
The Israeli soldiers captured 10 young Palestinian boys and gathered them in the middle of the village. They shot them all, one by one. Hundreds of Palestinian families fled their homes, taking shelter in mosques and churches. But they were not spared by the Israeli soldiers. The Zionist terrorists especially shot the children and young boys and girls to create panic and fear in the Palestinian families. The Palestinians were made to walk the same death marches as the ones of the Holocaust. But they had no tents or camps to go to. Their homes were blown up into pieces. Their valuable belongings were also stolen and looted by the Israeli soldiers. Parents lost their children, and brothers and sisters were separated. 700,000 Palestinians lost their homes, hundreds of villages were bombed, and thousands of them were killed. The independence of the Jews and the creation of Israel was indeed a day of catastrophe and horrors. It was indeed a Nakba. Chapter 5. Life after Nakba. The sun glared ferociously over the city of Hebron. Perhaps it too was angry at the sight of Israeli soldiers patrolling the streets. They were there to protect the Jewish families who had occupied the homes of the Palestinians unlawfully after the Nakba. However, they had made life extremely difficult for the Palestinians. "How dare you step here on this street? Can't you follow simple rules? Move away, now!" An Israeli guard hollered at a Palestinian man. He shoved him back with the butt of his gun. He was not allowed to walk freely on the streets just because he was a Palestinian. "You nasty little brat! Are you picking up this knife to attack us?" Another soldier yelled at a young girl, catching hold of her hands roughly.
"No, I haven't done anything."
"Liar!"
"Check my pockets if you want. I don't have any knives,"
the girl pleaded to the soldiers. But the soldiers did not listen to her pleas, arrested her, and took her away. After the Nakba, the Palestinians were left with a few homes in the West Bank and the small strip of land called Gaza. Most of the Palestinians were living in refugee camps near these areas. The refugee camps were tents set up by the charitable organizations of the world to help provide shelter to those who had lost everything to the Israeli occupiers. Life was difficult and scary for the Palestinians. The Israeli army kept a cruel control over them and made them prisoners in their own homes. Israel launched missiles and bombs at any time of the day or night. Sometimes Israeli drones would come flying over and spray poisonous gas over their crops and vegetables. And one of the most terrible of all these things was the Israeli control over the sacred Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Muslims could no longer visit Al-Aqsa Mosque and pray freely and safely inside it. Chapter 6. The Palestinians Strive. Let my message be heard clearly by our friends and enemies. Palestine will be freed by the will of God. Oh, Muslims and Arabs, it is time to unite. Join us to end this unlawful occupation and put an end to injustice. Do not hurt the elderly and young, but fight and gather to pray for our victory. The leader of Palestinian freedom fighters addressed the people on television. Years of oppression and injustice had given rise to many freedom fighters in Palestine. Their goal was to free their land and families from the Israeli occupiers and restore the old Palestine. But their efforts and campaigns were crushed by their powerful opponent. The world had forgotten the struggles of the Palestinians as years passed on. Nobody came to help them gain freedom. In fact, they'd started being more friendly with Israel, buying things they made and doing business deals with them. Israel used the money to buy more weapons and bombs to destroy Gaza. Gaza was the only piece of Palestinian land that remained untouched by the Israeli army. Until now. The year 2024 crosses 100 days of killing Palestinian people in Gaza. Israel continues the Zionist plan to wipe away the Palestinians from the face of the earth, while the leaders of the other powerful countries sit and watch. While the people continue to buy things from Israel, hundreds of children in Palestine are left alone in the dangerous streets of a war-stricken country. Small boys and girls in Gaza are stuck under the huge and heavy walls of their house, which fell down on top of them because of Israeli bombs. Many people today, Muslims and non-Muslims, have realized that Israel's aggression on Palestine is unacceptable. They've stopped buying from Israel and the countries who support and help Israel in this war. They have come out in the streets to protest and demand that Israel stops the killing of innocent people in Palestine. As Muslims, we believe that all the innocent Muslims who lost their lives in this war are from the martyrs. They have not died. They are alive in a better place than this world. They are in the gardens of heaven.
أم حسبتم أن تدخلوا الجنة ولما يأتكم مثل الذين خلوا من قبلكم مستهم البأساء والضراء وزلزلوا حتى يقول الرسول والذين آمنوا معه متى نصر الله ألا إن نصر الله قريب.
Do you think you will be admitted into paradise without being tested like those before you? They were afflicted with suffering and adversity, and were so violently shaken that even the messenger and the believers with him cried out, "When will Allah's help come?" Indeed, Allah's help is always near. Hey kids, to read more free ebooks like these, head to the brand new bookshelf on our website www.luqmay.com and browse through numerous free true stories. Link given in the description below.